morning. Can you hear me? Yeah. First of all, Mr. President, Suleiman Al-Mazouи sends his best regards. He's flying in tonight, and together with my good friend, we are going to watch the football game and hopefully see Iceland play the World Cup. Friedrich, thank you for having me. I'm Erik Saelens from Brandhome. Let's quickly start. What is a brand? What's a brand? Associations, identity. Five-letter word. It's immaterial asset. It's a belief system. Basically, what people like us program in the mind of the market. That's why you need to internalize it, what we have been hearing all the speakers before. But why do you need a brand? To create inelasticity. People often forget the business reason why we build brands is to create inelasticity. You make people less price elastic, they pay more. You make them less service elastic. When you do a bad job, they come back. You make them less distribution elastic. They wait longer or they go further. And you make them loyalty inelastic. That's what you do. That's why you build brands. And all the rest is subjective to that. Why do I put it forward here specifically on an energy branding congress? Because energy has, like insurances, what we call a dual consumption effect. You only see in the current market, it's changing. I think what the previous speakers were explaining, the world is changing. But today, for 95% of the people in the current market, you do not notice energy, unless I turn off the electricity right now. It's like an insurance. It's too expensive, it's annoying, you don't want to pay for it, but when you crash your car, you're happy they are there. It's a dual consumption effect. Okay, when I look at the energy brands, I think that we are going to see three things collide, which might be not so good for our sector. By nature, I'm very positive, but I think it's also good to times look ahead of things. Now, the first thing is liberalization of the market, customer's choice. We are facing this in Europe, and we see how difficult companies are dealing with that. I don't know across all European countries, but in Belgium and the Netherlands, you only control, as an energy player, 30% of the end consumer price. And then the government plays with the VAT and everything, so liberalization is a difficult game. Secondly, as Friedrich calls it, the space invaders. Everybody is going to fight for the battle for the home. I'm on the board of a company in San Francisco, which just got an investment from a big listed US company. We are also in the home. It's the battle for the home, and it's the battle for the business. And last but not least, I think that we will have new ways of consumption. Don't ask me what they are, but I think the ways of how people consume, how much they consume, energy efficiency is going to change. Now, when a couple of things collide, you could have a big disaster. Now, the first thing is, I think it's possible that a number of incumbent energy companies are going to go bankrupt. We'll talk about that a little bit later. When you look at the financial industry, when Fortis got bust, the Prime Minister called me. And it was the beginning of the first financial crisis. We had in the meantime a second one. And if we have to believe the German Minister of Finance, we are going to face the third one very soon, he announced this morning. I think it's a risk which is potentially there. And I think that we also will have energy companies which will survive because of government protection. It is true that energy companies, at least in Western Europe, which is a market I know very, very well, are structurally a part of the social tissue. They employ people, they also have the budgets to enable all kinds of cultural events, etc. So there is a reason why you would keep it protected by the government. Then I think there is a smaller group which will be able to reinvent itself, either through M&A or through internal innovation of the energy companies. Then I think there's the last group, where some of the big companies, and then when you talk about big tech companies, are going to buy some of these companies. Perhaps not their production entity, but perhaps they will buy their commercial front end. Now, the mission of our company, and what my task is at Brandhome, is we ensure profitable growth. I am responsible for the numbers. So what I did, I looked very closely at the numbers of some of these brands. Because I wanted to understand, is the value that these brands express on their balance sheets, is it the real value they have in the market? It's the same exercise that you do when we work on big M&A transactions. It's the same logic. Now, very simply, if you take 10% of the immaterial assets and you take 70% of the immaterial assets and you correct some of the values with the immaterial value which has been pushed down, in Europe many companies had to split their networks off and they pushed part of their brand-related goodwill down, then you basically see this. And what do we see here? That we lost, in the past 5 years, 20.6 billion in terms of balance sheet value, which is nothing else than, even if it's, let's say, there's only 7 companies, even if you would say 7% is related to M&A transactions which happened, you're still losing a lot of money, against which there are loans. I'm not going to crash the stock market here today, that the Germans will do later on today, so no problem. But then I specifically also wanted to look at what is now the outside-in value of these brands. Because, let's face it, what is the value of the brand? It's what the value is the market gives for it. I'm an avid collectioner of cars, but the value of a car is not related to what I think that the value is. It's what Jim is willing to pay for it at the end of the day. And of course, there's scarcity value. Now, when we do calculations at Brandhome, and I'm going to go very quickly about this because we only have 10 minutes, you can use the online search patterns as a proxy to create brand value and to measure it. So basically, what do you look at? You look at the search volume in all of the countries. You look at the search volume globally. Long story short, because I see there's only 1 minute left, but I'm going to put it on the internet later. What you basically see is that the difference between the on-the-paper value, which is in the books, and the off-the-paper value, it is basically what you are really worth. Look at the gaps which are there. Look at Engie. They scored 2%. Now, this is one constatation. The off-the-paper is much less than the off-the-paper. Now, then we did different research. We wanted to look at the value of these big companies. Now, when you look at these companies, it's very simple. This is what the energy brands are doing. This is what the space invaders are doing. Simply a logic. We wanted to understand what would happen if the space invaders would enter our industry, and the market would start looking like this. Why not? They have the franchise. Now, because you're limited by research resources, what did we do? We looked at, in the period between the first weeks of September, we looked at the Benelux market. And we looked at the switching power in the energy market. Now, the first thing you see is that all the markets are the same. Also in Benelux, price is the most important factor. What you also see is that when you look at the most preferred brand to buy energy from, it was Samsung, followed by Google, followed by Apple. The trust in the energy providers, in general, is lower, which is also normal, than these other brands. But here comes the interesting thing. When you look at the younger people, you basically lose it. You can tell nice stories, we can be very convinced about each other. This is research of a couple of thousand people. This is what young people think about it. Now, the willingness to change is there. People are willing to change with these brands. And how you find something interesting is that perhaps it's only 15%, but 15% is willing to pay more, which is interesting, because we all know that all energy brands in the market today have a negative pricing power in the market. Now, long story short, the Apple one scores higher there. Let's start wrapping it up. What I basically wanted to show is this. 36% of the Apple fans are willing to pay more for Apple energy, up to 22% of the value, which means that it's the first time that I see in energy land a positive brand pricing power which is comparable to luxury. Now, let's look at some takeaways. In quick, these brands can eat us. No, they can eat you. We are not in Brandhome Energy yet. Secondly, there is a big difference between on the paper and off the paper. You could get attacked. Apple is, in terms of branding, the strongest brand that could direct energy. Samsung has the broadest. And if you don't innovate, you will be eaten. So, in short, price versus deep pocket versus a price drop. I could do what we call little Amazon, getting into your market, dropping the price, squeezing the 30%, and I take you out. It's something that we all learn in our MBAs. You need superior customer service. You need new services to claim but hold the domain that we have now. In general, for most energy companies, a client, it's not a name, it's a number in the street. And it's a big challenge to change that mindset. And of course, we need to face reverse integration and a massive disruption. Thank you very much.